Oil prices keep rising, and that's driving up gas prices across the country ahead of the busy summer travel season. Fox Business Network's Jeff Flock is out of Citgo Refinery in Lamont, Illinois. Jeff, how high are gas prices now?
They're getting high. They're high, and they're getting higher, Dana. Take a look at that refinery back there behind me, making gas about as fast as they can. That's because gas is now $2.74 a gallon on average in this country. That's 30 cents more than it was a year ago, but it's risen 20 cents just in the last month. In fact, we found a gas station in California just on the edge of the Mojave Desert that's now charging $5.29 a gallon of regular gas. They get a little desperate, I guess, as they're about to head through the desert. What's causing all of this? Well, in some sense, it's a perfect storm of factors, many of them geopolitical. First of all, Venezuela. You know, I'm in front of the Citgo refinery in Lamont, Illinois, which is owned by the Venezuelan government. Citgo, of course, a company that relies on Venezuelan crude, their production way down because of unrest in the country. Unrest in Syria also putting pressure, upward pressure on prices. And then, of course, Iran, potential sanctions on Iranian oil if we pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. And last but not least, good old-fashioned supply and demand. This economy is humming along right now. More gas being burned than anticipated. And the supply, well, we've exhausted what was a supply situation that we were awash in oil. Not so much anymore. So don't go out and buy that gas guzzler just yet.
It all goes back to supply and demand. All right, Jeff.
I like it when it's like that.
Exactly. Very simple. We get it. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Teaming up for a good cause, how the New York Yankees are helping a victim of bullying. Flood watches are in effect across Hawaii as the island is expecting more heavy rain to end the week. As much as 28 inches fell over a 24-hour period last weekend. It caused massive floodings and landslides on Kauai. Several homes were destroyed, and the waters also washed out the main road leading to the north shore of the island. Remarkable pictures. The New York Yankees are standing up for a Pennsylvania fourth grader who said she's been the target of bullies. 10-year-old Cassidy Slater posted a video that went viral online detailing her struggle, saying no one would sit with her at lunch, among other things. 23 Yankee players and manager Aaron Boone made their own video response, saying they were saving a seat for her at their clubhouse and that they have her back. And in case you missed it, I sat down with the ladies of The View this morning. After talking politics, we talked dogs and the paperback release of my book. Let me tell you about Jasper. I had a good time being there, and I'll see you tomorrow from Houston as we prepare to celebrate the life of Barbara Bush. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dana. Here's Shep.
It's noon on the West Coast, 3 o'clock in Washington, where there is word now of new trouble for the former FBI director Andrew McCabe. He's already lost his job. He's fighting to keep his pension after a report he lied to investigators, and now we've learned he could face criminal charges. Plus, we'll take you to the Syrian border to hear directly from people who say they survived a chemical weapons attack. And the firefighter who stepped forward to help out on that Southwest Airlines jet after a window shattered and a woman was nearly sucked into the sky.
I'm trained for emergency situations, and that's just exactly what it was.
Let's get to it.
Now, Shepard Smith reporting live from the Fox News deck.
And good Thursday afternoon from the Fox News deck. The fired FBI director Andrew McCabe could face criminal charges. A source now tells our Catherine Herridge that the Justice Department Inspector General sent its findings to McCabe, or on McCabe, to a top federal prosecutor in D.C. Last week, the Inspector General sent Congress a report ripping into McCabe for repeatedly lying to investigators, sometimes under oath. And last month, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, fired Andrew McCabe the day before his retirement, denying him some of his benefits. McCabe has denied that he did anything wrong and has said the Trump administration has been attacking him for political reasons. Last week, his lawyer threatened to sue the president and his team. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, is live on Capitol Hill. Catherine?
Well, Shep, this has been pretty tough to confirm independently because criminal referrals are meant to stay secret. But in the last few minutes, a source familiar with the referral has confirmed to Fox News that it was made by the Justice Department's internal watchdog, the Inspector General, and it was made to the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Washington, D.C. for the former Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe. And it was over evidence that he had lied 4 times to federal investigators and 3 times under oath over his role in a media leak about the Clinton Foundation. What we don't know is whether the U.S. Attorney feels there's sufficient evidence to warrant a criminal prosecution, and in this case, it would be on 18 U.S.C. 1001, which is the federal lying statute. The other thing we're trying to work out, and based on my conversation within the last hour, it does appear the referral was made sometime after February or in late February. That is when the Inspector General finished his investigation of the leak involving McCabe, and we believe presented that evidence to the U.S. Attorney here in Washington, Shep.
What's the status of Congress getting Comey's memos?
Well, this is an entirely fluid situation here on Capitol Hill. 2 of our contacts have said it's possible that the Comey memos may be provided to Capitol Hill at some time late today, but that is not firm. One contact has just told me in the last few minutes that while it's sort of a lot of movement with the memos, the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Bob Goodlatte, has been drafting a subpoena in order to force the Justice Department to provide those memos. You remember about a week ago, 3 committees, the Republican chairman, asked for the memos to be provided. The deadline was Monday. It was missed. The Justice Department got an extension, and that brings us to today. I think what the public wants to know is when they're going to see these memos. There are 7, based on our reporting. 4 have classified information either at the secret or the confidential level. My contacts here on the Hill have said they want to make every effort to release those memos as soon as possible if they do not contain classified information, or if the memos are provided to the Hill in a heavily redacted form, which would allow for public release. But that has yet to be decided as well, Shep.
Catherine Herridge working the story on the Hill. Thank you. There's word North Korea is willing to talk about giving up its nuclear weapons while dropping a demand that it's been making for decades. That's according to South Korea's president. He says the North's dictator, Kim Jong-un, is no longer insisting that U.S. troops leave South Korea as a condition for complete denuclearization. The demand has been a major sticking point between Washington and Pyongyang. North Korean leaders have said that they need nuclear weapons, that they need them because of the tens of thousands of U.S. troops who are stationed next door. President Trump says he'll probably meet with Kim Jong-un in early June. If so, it will be the first time a sitting American president has met with a North Korean leader. The chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live down in the Palm Beaches near the president's resort. John, today we've now heard from the president that there are conditions under which this won't happen.
Well, yeah, there could be. He definitely wants to make sure that any meeting that they have is going to bring results, and that Kim Jong-un is just not playing games. But Shep, when you look at how the ground has shifted over just the last few weeks, it really is quite remarkable. They've gone from hurling insults at each other and calling each other names now to the president saying there's the budding of a good relationship here. There is respect between the 2 countries. All of this after the CIA director, Mike Pompeo, traveled to Pyongyang over the Easter weekend for face-to-face talks with Kim. But the president insisting that the campaign of maximum pressure will be kept up against North Korea. Shinzo Abe, the Japanese prime minister, yesterday saying that North Korea cannot be rewarded, can't be given any gifts, that it has to take concrete action, and that has to be demanded by all parties involved. The president yesterday in a press conference with Shinzo Abe pushing back against his critics who think that he may get played by North Korea in this meeting, saying that he is prepared to leave Kim Jong-un sitting there if he thinks the talks are going nowhere. Listen here.
If the meeting when I'm there is not fruitful, I will respectfully leave the meeting and will continue what we're doing or whatever it is that will continue, but something will happen. So I like always remaining flexible and will remain flexible here. So we've gotten us here, and I think we're going to be successful.
Well, we will see. The president is certainly sounding an optimistic note, though, about the possibility of sitting down with Kim Jong-un. Denuclearization, of course, is the major issue on the table, but there are sub-issues as well. One is the 3 Americans who continue to be detained by North Korea. Mike Pompeo brought that up in his meetings with Kim Jong-un, I'm told by administration sources. And as well, there's the issue of the 17 Japanese abductees who have been in North Korea now for an awfully long time. The president assuring Shinzo Abe yesterday, Shep, that he will bring up that matter, saying it's important to Abe, so it's important to me. Shep?
Hey, John, what do you know about the possible locations for a meeting between these two leaders?
Well, the president said earlier this week that they narrowed it down to 5. I've been trying to work my sources to figure out what those 5 might be. I've come up with 3 pretty good possibilities. One of them is Singapore, which is close to the Korean Peninsula, which may be good since Kim Jong-un doesn't really like to travel. Another one under the S letter, Sweden, and a third one under the S letter, Switzerland. I'm told as well that some other locations still under consideration, probably though far less likely, could be Vietnam or Malaysia. Again, it's how far Kim wants to go. When he went to Beijing recently, he traveled by train. There's some speculation that his aging fleet of aircraft may not take him halfway around the world. And then there's also the idea, too, that the president doesn't want to travel most of the way around the world to meet with Kim and then have the meeting fall apart. He wouldn't like the headline that resulted from that. We are told, though, by White House sources that a few places they won't meet. They won't meet anywhere on the Korean Peninsula, and that includes Pyongyang, Panmunjom right there on the border, and Seoul, and also not Beijing. White House official telling me the other day, if we headed in Beijing, we might as well invite the Chinese to the table because they'll just be listening in anyways. Shep?
John, I might be listening in anyway. Who knows? John Roberts live down in the...
They could be.
Good to see you. Thank you. Let's turn to Tara Mahler now. Former CIA military analyst, now spokesperson and senior policy advisor for the Counter-Extremism Project. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
In the main, what do you think of this venture?
Well, the venture in and of itself is promising in that I'm always for diplomacy and getting parties to the table to talk. Having said that, we're still a long way from getting a successful outcome here. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, a lot of expertise that needs to be brought to the table here. This is not a meeting you go into unscripted. This is not a meeting you go into sort of with off-the-cuff remarks. You need a clear strategy. You need to know what the United States is willing to give, what we're trying to get, and a strategy for getting there.
The idea of them talking, are there areas in which the United States can't give that give you concern about how this may come out?
There are. I don't think the United States is going to go in there with a strategy of turning over too much. My concern is that in order for these parties to get to the table and talk, you don't want President Trump to just sort of off the cuff make promises that the follow-up negotiations and talks that are going to probably take place after this with the details won't be able to fulfill. So, for example, we have obviously very strong security commitments in terms of our troops, both in South Korea and Japan. That's something the United States has been fairly unyielding on, as we should be. That doesn't mean we can't have small reductions, but to sort of go in there and yield on that front would be problematic. Also for our allies in the region. And then there's also, military exercises that we do, other military equipment we have in the area. These are all things that the United States has historically had strong security guarantees for our Asian allies. So we don't want to do something that's going to create instability with our allies in the region. We can't just be looking out for United States interests. We need to be looking at this holistically as well. And then the real question, my real concern here is the verification. What does denuclearization mean? Are we trying to get them to get rid of everything? Do we know where everything is? And if we don't, how are we going to ensure that we can inspect? Or are we just trying to freeze missile launches or certain types of nuclear activity? Again, these are all things that the State Department, the CIA, the administration at the White House all need to be thinking about as they go into these talks.
Is there any danger? I mean, these two leaders sit down. What happens if the leader from North Korea, doesn't play by the rules as previously established? I guess there are risks inherent with any sort of negotiation, but in your estimation, there are risks worth taking?
I think in any negotiation there are risks. At the end of the day, whether you're doing a personal negotiation, a business deal, an international negotiation, it really boils down to individual personalities and psychology in terms of how the meeting is going to pan out. That's not to say that the preparation itself can't lay the groundwork for a successful meeting, but you're absolutely correct. We're dealing with two I'd argue, fairly volatile, unpredictable personality types. This is an unprecedented meeting. And I know President Trump has made comments that if it's not going our way, he'll walk out. But that can have ramifications, too, in terms of our national security and what may or may not prompt that sort of outcome for the meeting. So I think it'll be interesting to see. The other thing nobody's talking about is, are there cameras in the room? Who else is going to be present for the meeting? It's going to involve other people. Is there going to be a transcript? Is there going to be any part of this that's public? All things that we need to be looking at as we approach the meeting, whenever it may end up being.
Tara Mahler, thanks so much.
Thank you.
The first vote is just days away on Mike Pompeo's nomination to be the Secretary of State. Pompeo is facing opposition from at least one Republican, but his chances of confirmation just got better thanks to one particular Democrat. The details on that coming up from the Fox News Deck on this Thursday afternoon.